Now, Sports Talk with Broads. Here's Hunter Brody.
What is going on, everyone? There is some baseball news to discuss. And the last time we talked about baseball is when the owners sent out their first proposal. 82 games. If you make $35 million, you're only going to make 7.8. So it was really embarrassing, right? It was a joke of an offer. And the owner's mindset going into it was, well, if these players who make $1 million, $2 million, if those players are going to get a high percent of their salary, then we might be on to something. Because there's so many players in baseball that make a very little amount of money. And because we are offering them such a good portion of their contract, maybe it will start some sort of civil war between the players, because the superstars are going to be unhappy, but those players who don't make a lot are going to be satisfied with seeing, whoa, all right, hold on a second. You're telling me I'm getting 90% of my contract? You're telling me I'm getting 85%? All right, listen, let's go. Let's rock and roll. That was the owner's mindset heading into it. But Scott Boras is in the mix when it comes to the players' union, and the union's very strong, so it did not seem to work out as planned. I'm sure the owners knew that going into it, but that had to have been what they thought they were going to do, or at least that was their attempt heading into that proposal. So since then, the players themselves countered the owners. We will break it down. And now you're hearing MLB itself saying, listen, if we get nothing, this is how it's going to be. If you two can't figure it out, this is what it will be. And it's really interesting. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know how to feel about it. There's a lot to dive into, and I can't wait to do it. But before we do, let's hear a word from my sponsor, Orbit Energy and Power. They set the standard for clean energy. Whether you are looking to add solar to your home or company, Orbit works directly with you to ensure that you are getting the best deal. That's not all. They also provide water purification systems, backup energy services, battery storage, and more. So visit them online at orbitenergy.us or give them a call at 800-836-3987. We will start with the players' rebuttal, if you will. And they want a 114-game season. Now, keep in mind, the more games they play, the more money they make. And they are just assuming that they are going to get the prorated amount of money that they signed for in March. And listen, that's the issue. That's the starting point. The owners are not willing to do that. And here goes a lot of people going, well, they signed it. I mean, if they signed it, screw them, they messed up. And I get it, but here's the thing. They have the power. It's their business. If they screwed up, they can easily say, well, listen, we screwed up, and we are going to reassess this. So I get it. It's not fair, right? It shouldn't be that way, but it is that way, and I think both parties need to understand that. I am pro players. I want to get that out of the way. But when I look at a situation like this, I like to look at every single direction. I want to look at all avenues and look at, well, how are they approaching this? Well, how are the players going to approach it? How is the owners going to approach it? What about the minor leaguers? How are they feeling about it? How do the owners feel about the minor leaguers? I mean, I like to look at it all the way around. Quite frankly, I think both parties are in the wrong and they both need to figure it the hell out. I don't like how either sides are approaching this, but here we are, and this is how it's going to be, and this is how we knew it was going to be, but now we are experiencing it. We are in the middle of it, so it's different, right? I mean, you can talk about it all you want, but until it's actually here and you got to live through the moments, it totally changes its feel, if you will, and here we are. So I don't get why the players right off the bat are just assuming, hey, well, let's go with the March agreement, prorated salaries, and this is what we want with that. That's the reason why this discussion is even happening, because of the March agreement. So that needs to be settled first before you start throwing out 114 games. Before you start throwing out, you can sit out if you don't feel like playing. Before you throw out a situation where a high-risk player of the coronavirus, like if you are at a high risk to get it, well, you can still get paid. Before you throw out all these bullet points, you got to figure out the prorated salary portion. So right off the jump, I hate that the players went with that proposal. That's the biggest issue. So you are really getting nothing done when you think about it. Just like the owners threw something at the players, this is the same thing. They're just throwing it right back. Now, ultimately, is it better? Sure. I think this is a little bit better, a little bit more structured. There are some decent points to take away from it, but it's still just throwing something at the wall, knowing that this will not get anything accomplished whatsoever. I'm hoping that the NHL coming back, the NBA coming back, the NFL just rolling through will be enough pressure for these two parties to get on the field. How bad of a look would it be if they just can't stop fighting over money? It would be a sick joke, and I think they know that, and I think baseball knows that as well, and that's why they put out this new situation where they're putting their foot down going, fellas, figure it out, or we are just going to push this on you. So let's get to the 114 game season. I think it's too much. I think they need to go with that 80 mark. I like that 80 mark. I know the players want more because it means they get paid more, but I don't want them to throw a bunch of games together, force them to play essentially every day, doubleheaders, but then Bryce Harper won't play. JT won't play. Andrew McCutchen won't play. Gene Segura's sitting. Oh, that's great. You guys are getting more games, but I don't want to watch Andrew Knapp. I don't want to watch some of these other players during those weeks. If you're going to be sitting more because there's more games, well, I don't want that. Why do I care? I want to see you play. And I think 114 is just too many games, especially because they warmed their whole bodies up. They had to sit down. Now they got to warm their bodies up again. And now 114 games jumbled up and packaged together in a smaller window. No, thank you. I'll take the 82. I think 82 is good. It's not a sprint. It's not a marathon either, but it's enough games to satisfy me with where they are now. Because keep in mind, it's not right now. It's not June 2nd, the day that I am speaking about this, because by the time they actually get something together, which is going to take a little bit of time, so it seems, and then they got to rework their bodies, which is going to take a little bit of time, and then they are going to have opening day, and then you're squeezing in 114 games. We're talking about months from now at this point, so it's crazy to think 114 games is what they're going to do. I like the 82. I think 80 to 90 in that range is solid. But of course the players want more because it means they get paid more money. Now here's one that's interesting. The high-risk players could sit out the season without pay. And I'm not trying to seem like I don't care about players who have health conditions that the coronavirus is more attracted to, or it's easier for specific individuals to get the virus. I feel for them, no doubt about it. I just don't know if this is something that I like in this deal. I mean, we've seen it all around the world in general when it comes to workers' comp or some sort of unemployment. There's loopholes, and I just feel like this is a situation where there could be a loophole. There could be players that try and find a way to say, well, you know, I could be at risk. Let me just get paid my full money because I don't feel like playing. I don't like that option is out there. Now, will these players be able to get paid? I think that there should be something written down where if you are a high-risk person, you can get some money. I'm not acting as if they have to sit home and get no money because it's not their fault. I totally understand that. They should get some sort of money, but full pay, I don't think that should be the way to do it. What about the players who are at high risk, who do want to play, and they're just going to go out there and do it anyway? I mean, there's just so much when it comes to that. I'm okay with finding a way to pay players that physically are unable to due to the coronavirus, and if they're easy to get it, I'm totally for it. I get that side of it. I just don't want them to get paid their full amount because that just opens up these doors for loopholes, and I don't think that that's okay. Any player can sit out the season for no pay? Sure. I mean, if you don't feel comfortable at all, okay, that's fine. Because there are people who don't feel comfortable. There are people that do not want to put themselves in a situation that then can go to their families whenever they're able to go home and see their families and see their kids and see their parents who might be older. I mean, listen, if you do not feel comfortable, by all means, you are allowed to sit out. But I talked about how a lot of the league is paid $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, a lesser amount of money. I think a lot of players are going to want to go out there because not everyone's Mike Trout, not everyone's Bryce Harper. If you're going to have to go out there and compete to prove yourself, well, then you might have to go do that, right? I mean, if you sit out, if you're a lesser player and you know you have to go out there and compete and produce and get good numbers, if you sit out, it might hurt you and bite you in the ass. So it's something that's on the table, but I don't know how many players are going to do that and sit out for no pay at all. Next part of the proposal by the players, putting some money up front, essentially. It says here a second salary advance during spring training. So pretty much getting fronted some money. I talk about this all the time, how the owners need to give a little, the players need to give a little. This is a situation where I think the owners need to give a little. All right, you might have to give a little up front. All right, I get that. But so be it. If that's what it's going to take, that's what it's going to take. Both sides will have to take some sort of hits. This, to me, is a hit that the owners should be able to accept and move forward with. So you give a little money up front. Okay. Because I think here the concern is, well, maybe the second wave comes. Maybe there's more coronavirus. Maybe you might have to shut down. At least because we went out there at some point, to some degree, we will get some money in return as well in the beginning. So I'm cool with that. Expanding the playoffs, more teams for more than just one season. And here's the thing when it comes to that, that's inevitable. Once they went to the expansion, it was going to happen anyway. More money for the teams, more money from broadcasting, and more opportunities for players to make the playoffs. It's a win-win, right? I mean, and it was going to happen anyway. So that's just a fluffer. That's just something that the players threw in there like, hey, we'll do this. Yeah, well, that was going to happen anyway. Once you put extra teams in the playoffs, it's going to move forward that way because it will help all parties involved. So that's a fluffer. That means nothing to me at all. Here's a big one. Deferring money. Now, the number says $100 million in salary with interest, but I think that number would have to beef up a little bit more. But the deferred money conversation as a whole, I don't see it because they still want their full pay from what they wanted in March. This brings back the conversation that we started this proposal with when it comes to that March agreement. The owners are going to look at that and say, we are not bringing in that type of revenue, so we will not be able to pay you that much money. You want that money that you signed for in March, we are not bringing that in. So it doesn't matter how long you are stretching this out for. The point is, we are not bringing it in this year to be able to pay you that money. And the players will counter with something like, well, that's why we are deferring it over years. You will have plenty of time to make that up and pay us over a long period of time. We are giving you multiple seasons to be able to bring back that type of revenue. Listen, I get it. That might be where the owners are going to have to give a little as well. That might be a spot where they say, okay, you know what? Deferred money. Sure. I don't think it will happen with the exact March agreement, though, and I think that's where the problem is. The deferred money concept, I can get behind that. I don't know if I can get behind the players with that March 26th agreement or whatever the date was. There's got to be something there that we don't know about. Because there's a conversation right now about, well, in the agreement, the owners did not factor in no fans. And most people would say, well, shame on them. And you're right, shame on them. But they, as the owners, have the power to say, you know what, we screwed up. We are going to have to reassess this. Now it comes down to, do you believe that they screwed up? Do you believe that they're not going to make any sort of money? I mean, they are claiming that putting the product on the field hurts them more than not playing baseball at all. And the only thing that I'm going to say to that is, you know, it sounds silly. It sounds unreasonable. But why would they put up this type of fight if they were lying? To make it seem as if maybe they're bluffing. You know, when you're playing cards and you're playing poker and you make it seem like you got a four of a kind, but you really have nothing at all. Are the owners bluffing completely so they can bring in a way more bigger revenue? Maybe, possibly. But you got to get something on the field. You just have to. And at the end of the day, the owners, like it or not, They hold the cards. They are the ones that hold the cards. They own the business. They can't get it done without players. I get that. I'm not saying the players don't have value. Of course they do. Without the players, the owners aren't making the money. Without the owners, the players aren't getting paid that much, right? So it works both ways, but at the end of the day, if you are a business owner, there's no one over you. You are at the top of the top. You'll find other players if that's the case. The owners are at the top. They will make out on top over anybody else. That's the power of owning a business. This one's great. Players would agree to broadcast enhancements to add value, including having live mics. Now, that's not going to enhance the broadcast to an insane degree where all this money is going to come in because of that. But I do like that addition. We've seen it over the All-Star game, and we've seen it over some little fun events throughout baseball. And yeah, I think it would be an awesome element. It would be interesting, though, when you're talking about playoff baseball, Game 7, wild card game, and you're up the bat and you're talking to the broadcaster, you're in left field, or I don't know how it would all work out, but I think it's a great addition, no doubt about it. And also, and I like this one, potential for a home run derby and All-Star game after the season. Now, we were discussing this on the Powder Blue podcast with Frank Close, myself, and Jeff Mosher. Is anyone going to care? At the end of the season, is anyone going to care about a game that doesn't matter, the home run derby, when, if you look at it, there will be NFL games on, meaningful NFL games, possibly, depending on where the NBA is at or the NHL is at, there will be a lot of other stuff going on. Where are you going to factor this in? If there's college football on, well, it can't be on the weekends, it can't be on Monday, it can't be on Thursday. You're just going to slap it on a Wednesday night and hoping something else isn't there. I like the idea. I don't think it can hurt at all, unless they put it on a Sunday at 1 o'clock, and then shame on baseball for doing that. But then again, we are talking about baseball, so it is possible that that can happen. I like that concept, though. I do. And look, where we're at now with all this, it's upsetting. I don't like the fact that it seems as if they're just throwing out ideas where it's not going to work. They are sending ideas to both sides that are not going to work. And I understand that that's how negotiations goes down, right? I mean, this is the process. But normally, there's not a pandemic. Normally, the season starts on time, and then you fight throughout the season, but there's still baseball, and you fight for a future agreement, and things are still happening. Don't get me wrong. Are there times where there's no World Series or there's a bit of a holdout? Yeah, no doubt, there is. But for the most part, there's not a pandemic happening, and the world isn't going the way that it is right now. I mean, it's just a totally different scenario at this very moment. And because of that, I think they need to realize it. Now, I don't want the players to get walked all over. I get it. I want the players to get paid their money, right? That's like the big conversation. Oh, these owners are billionaires. These owners have so much money. They shouldn't care about losing money. See, I don't like that mindset. See, I'm pro players, but I don't like that mindset either. They are business people for a reason. They are successful for a reason. They need to be reasonable in this scenario, no doubt. They can't grab and reach for every penny, which they are doing, which is why this is stressful. But to think that they shouldn't care at all and they should just take this huge hit, I don't support that either. They are business people. Should other businesses just take huge hits right now just because? No. Well, they shouldn't either. But they should still, maybe it's limiting how much you get hit. Okay. I can get behind fighting for that. They're going to take a hit, but they're fighting to limit their hit. Okay. They need to seriously come together and stop this. The fact that the NHL and NBA are going to come back before them, it's probably crazy. And it shouldn't be that way. We should already have a date set for the MLB. We should already be hyped up for a spring training 2.0. It should be pushed in the right direction already. And you can argue that this is being pushed in the right direction. This scenario right now that we are talking about, the one that's being displayed, this is headed in the right direction. And I've laid it out on a timeline before. The season goes down. They finish whatever spring training that they were doing, and then on the timeline, it's back and forth conversation between players' union and ownership. But on the long-term timeline, that's a big step forward, even though it seems like it's going back and forth. And I get that. But let's go. The pressure has to be real. Baseball's already a dying sport. Imagine if they don't get on the field at all. Oh, perfect segue, bros. They will at some point, and here's why. If they are unable to reach an agreement, Major League Baseball has discussed playing a shorter schedule in which it would pay members of the MLB Players Association their prorated salaries, which they agreed to. But here's the kicker. 50 games. 50-game season. So the players are getting that prorated amount. They're only playing 50 games. They want 114. So that's less than half of what they proposed. 50 games, the players are not going to be happy. Even though they're getting that March agreement, now things change. Now it's a little bit different. They're only getting 50 games. And that kind of, it benefits the owners if you think about it. Because they can sit back on their hands and say, all right, listen, for 50 games, we don't want to play a lot of games. This could limit how much damage it does. Maybe the owners sit on their hands. I don't know. I mean, it seems like, really, it seems like it benefits nobody because you guys did such a poor job that the league had to step in and make a decision and say, screw you both. We're getting on the field. But I think when it comes to the negotiations right now, it might lean towards the owners because I think the players will be more pissed off about this than the owners, considering it's only 50 games. And this is something that Jeff Mosher mentioned to us on that Powder Blue podcast. You might see some of these stars, some of these players, I pulled a hammy. I'm not playing. You might see some sort of, I guess we can use loophole. Okay, fine, we'll play. Or will we? Maybe I tweak something. Maybe I'm not feeling well. I don't know if the players will get to that level because I think they all missed the game. And I wonder if, all right, listen, we're not happy, but we're at least on the diamond. And maybe there's something to be said about that feeling of being on the diamond, throwing the pitches, swinging the bat, having that atmosphere, looking around, seeing the sun. It's Sunday afternoon. I mean, maybe once they get out there, even though they'd be unhappy with what they're making, just the point of, look, we're here. There's a pandemic. There's a lot going on in this world outside of the pandemic. We have an outlet to give people an escape. We want to play baseball again. Maybe once it's just the dust is settled and it's there to play, they just do it. And I would hope it would lean that way, but I understand that that's me just being super optimistic as a sports fan because in reality, it's probably not going to go down that way. 50 games is a sprint, and it doesn't feel like a baseball season, and it feels like it would be a tournament. But I just wonder if it would be good for the sport of baseball. Everyone talks about there shouldn't be 162. There should be way less. They play way too many games. And look, I love baseball so much, I don't mind if there's 360 games. But in this scenario, if it's 50, maybe it's a little bit more intriguing for people. This is essentially getting thrown right into the back stretch. Hey, here you go. Here's that back stretch. Run with it. Roll with it. Now the argument comes in, well, some teams come up to hot starts, and then that's the beauty of baseball. You got to prolong it. You got to make sure that you succeed for long periods of time. Will there be spurts of bad play? Sure. But if you have that spurt of bad play right off the jump for the first 20 games, you might be essentially screwed for the whole season. And my response to that? Tough. Oh, well. This is the year that everybody has to deal with this. Everybody's in the same boat. It's not as if that specific team's in one boat and everybody else has this clean playing field. No. Everyone's on the same page. It's going to be brutal for everyone. It's going to be tough for everyone. Don't start off slow. I guess that's the way to look at it. The Nationals won the World Series last year. Look where they were. They were brutal at one point. If that happened this year, guess what? They probably wouldn't be the World Series champions. Don't be that team. I don't love it, but I do like the fact that the MLB stepped in. It's almost like giving them a deadline. Look, let's go. Time's ticking. You better figure it out. It's sort of like sending a message. Figure it out, or you were going to get this. And once again, who does that benefit more? Well, I think the players are going to have to make a move here. 50 games, 114 games, probably too much. The original proposal by the MLB was 82 games, and I don't think that they're off when it comes to that number. I think that's very realistic. I could live with an 80-game season, especially when you see the alternative at 50. More of a sprint, totally understandable. You're going to have to live with some things. You're not going to be able to make everyone happy. I think everybody understands at this point that it's not going to be normal, and that's fine. I don't want to be sitting here complaining about the owners and the players anymore, though. Let's see a step forward. Let's see somebody step up and say, let's go. And stop beating around the bush. But when you got Scott Boras supporting you, and when you got a strong union like the players do, it could get ugly. And congrats to them for having such a strong union. I think that that's very powerful. That's meaningful. That's what people want, right? When you're on that side, you want a union that's strong. But let's go. I think these circumstances are a little bit different. Just crazy. It really is. So, with that being said, one more time, this episode of Sports Talk with Broads is sponsored by Orbit Energy and Power, and they set the standard for clean energy. Whether you are looking to add solar to your home or company, Orbit works directly with you to ensure you are getting the best deal. Their team has over 20 years of experience, including working on the Lincoln Financial Field. That's not all. Orbit also provides water purification systems, backup energy services, battery storage, and more. So visit them online at orbitenergy.us or give them a call at 800-836-3987. I would love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments section if you're listening to this on YouTube. And if you're listening to this on any podcasting platform, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, leave a review and you can comment with the review system. I really enjoy reading that. So thank you all so much for listening, and I will see you next time.